wasn't even paid off yet. Hi guys, how the fuck have you been? It's been a while. And I'm sorry about that. Life happens from time to time, as a lot of you may know. I kind of feel like I should apologize because it's been so long, but at the same time, I feel like the three of you that actually watch my videos will understand, and that's why you are near and dear to my heart. Just like Batman. But anyway, the topic of today is... Now, I know I'm a little behind with this review, but regardless of that, I still wanted to give you my thoughts. Just so you know, this video may contain spoilers, so if you don't want to know anything about the movie, don't watch it. Just get out of the video. Just X out of it. And I'm also aware that I'm wearing a fucking Batman shirt when I'm talking about a Marvel movie, so for all of you fanboys out there, forgive me. Because forgiveness is the way to the righteous path. So the basic premise of Age of Ultron is the fact that Tony Stark has been working for a while with a program to kind of protect the entire world from threats before they start. It's kind of like that program from the Winter Soldier, that Project Insight. His whole point behind it is to make sure to keep the world safe before threats even happen. Where his intentions are good, his execution ends up not being so much. So they end up raiding one of Hydra's bases and end up finding Loki's scepter. Now what they don't initially know is that in Loki's scepter is the Mind Gem. One of the many gems for the Infinity Gauntlet. When Tony Stark takes the scepter onto the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, or the Avenger helicarrier, one or the other, he brings it into his lab and he starts dissecting it and studying it, and then he realizes that it actually has artificial intelligence. And so he's talking to Bruce Banner, and he's like, hey, we can finally make Ultron. And Banner's just kind of sitting there like, no, that's a very bad idea. But Tony Stark does it anyway because he doesn't give a fuck. He's BA, he's Iron Man. So against better judgment, he ends up kicking off the Ultron program. And as soon as Ultron becomes self-aware, he's like a child.
Are you my daddy?
With his programming of protection, he takes it to a very far extreme. And whereas he was initially created to protect humankind, he essentially wants to destroy it because we're going to destroy ourselves anyway, or he just finds that we are imperfect, or he's got one of those many villainous reasons. Every major villain's bent on world domination anyway. You should join a club.
Bitch, we've got one.
So Ultron has been created. He ends up going out and trying to steal all of the vibranium from Wakanda to build himself a better form and make himself a more formidable opponent.
I'm gonna fuck shit up.
He also at one point holds the Avengers medic hostage because they have this tank that can generate flesh or regenerate flesh if you've been seriously injured. She ends up creating for him a body. He wants to transfer his consciousness into it and have that be, for lack of a better word, his ultimate form. The Mind Gem from Loki's scepter has been embedded into the forehead of the body, but I'll get to that in a minute. While Ultron is trying to exact his plans of world domination, he enlists the help of Pyotr Maximoff, also known as Quicksilver, and his sister Wanda Maximoff, also known as Scarlet Witch. Quicksilver, he's super speedy.
Not very popular with the ladies.
And Scarlet Witch, she has mind manipulating power.
Trippin' balls.
Which does come into play with a few of the Avengers themselves. They work with Ultron side by side for a while, but then even they start seeing that there's something kind of off kilter about him. He starts explaining what he wants to do, and they're both just kind of like,
dude, this guy's fucking crazy.
So once they come to their senses, they end up joining forces with the Avengers. Now about halfway through the movie, the body that Ultron was creating for his ultimate form ends up being stolen by the Avengers. And while Stark's plan didn't quite work with Ultron, he still thinks that it would be a good idea to then upload Jarvis into the system of this particular body. And most of the other Avengers are like, it didn't work the first time, what the fuck are you doing? But then with a little aid from Thor, oddly enough, Stark ends up doing so anyway. And here we have the birth of the character Vision. I don't really know much about the character Vision. I didn't really know much about him in the comic book, so I'm not really sure what he's all about, but from the little bit of understanding I do have, his creation was pretty faithful to the comics. From what I do know, he was in fact created by Ultron and wasn't a quick ally to the Avengers, but eventually became one. Vision is very naive as a character. And even though he was uploaded with Jarvis's consciousness, I don't know if you can call it that because Jarvis is a fucking program. But either way, at one point he even says, I'm not Jarvis, I am. He just is. kind of a badass entrance. So at this point, they have a new ally against their fight with Ultron. Now, his actual idea for trying to wipe out part of the human race is levitating a massive chunk of a continent up in the air and then just dropping it the fuck down. So of course, the Avengers have to stop him from doing that and save the human race. They do, and they also end up destroying all of the drones that Ultron has created in his quest. One of the reasons why this is so important is because of the fact that Ultron, because he is a machine, he can transfer his consciousness from one cybernetic form to another. Upon his conception, he escaped the Avengers Tower through the internet, which presses the hell out of me because I would imagine it would be completely tied up with people beating off the fucking porn all day. Oh shit! So at the end of it all, the Avengers defeat Ultron, and when you think he's completely gone, you see one last drone kind of shuffling about, but he's intercepted by Vision. There's a little bit of quippy dialogue between the two of them, where Vision gives his perspective on the human race, Ultron gives his. And it's almost like a Magneto and Xavier dynamic. They're two opposite ends of the spectrum. Whereas Vision respects the human race as a naive breed, and Ultron sees them as a threat and just wants to fucking wipe us out completely. But Vision respects humanity, although he doesn't want to destroy Ultron, he knows that he cannot allow him to succeed. And then after their witty dialogue, he just fucking blasts him to Kingdom Come with his little gem on his head. And that was the end of Ultron. So first I want to talk about some of the good aspects of the movie. All of the actors did a phenomenal job. You actually get the sense that they all have a rapport with one another, and they play off of each other really well. The team dynamic is great, and they even do a great job with putting in little nuances to set up Civil War, which is essentially Avengers 2.5. The action in this movie was also ramped up like a motherfucker from the first movie, especially during the fight between the Hulk and Iron Man. Holy shit, the Hulkbuster armor was awesome. And there's also a lot of laughs to be had in that scene. I loved it. Another thing I really liked about this movie is they gave certain characters a little more development than they had in previous films. More specifically, Hawkeye. Hawkeye had like a 10-second cameo in the original Thor movie, and then he got very little exposition in the first Avengers through discussions between himself and
Black Widow.
Even Jeremy Renner said that he was disappointed with the character that he ended up playing in the first Avengers because that's not the character that he thought he was signing up for. You end up finding out that he's actually got a family, and the safe house for the Avengers is actually his home that he was able to keep off of the grid thanks to the help of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it gives you a really cool glimpse into his life, and I really like that about it. Now I want to talk a little bit about what I thought was the bad. First off, I was very disappointed about the fact that Ultron was nowhere near as menacing as they made him out to be in the trailers. Especially with the whole speech about having no strings on him anymore, he sounded like a badass. Not to say that he wasn't a badass in the movie, but especially having James Spader cast as the voice of Ultron, he's a creepy motherfucker. At least he has the potential to be. So I was very excited to see where he was going to take the character, and a lot of the jokes in the movie are in fact made by Ultron, and he has a lot of comedic moments in the movie, which kind of took away from that sinister vibe that I felt the movie should have had.
Fear me!
But then again, that is my own opinion. I just thought it was going to be more menacing. Another problem I kind of had with this movie was I felt like it sort of recycled a lot from the first Avengers. And this is what I'm talking about. You have the villain. In the first movie, it was Loki. In this movie, Ultron. Loki wanted to rule Midgard, or Earth. Ultron wanted to rule the world. In both movies, the villain has an army that the Avengers have to defeat in order to succeed. Loki had the Chitauri. Ultron had his metal minions. And granted, I understand there has to be that struggle that the Avengers have to overcome, and it's not going to feel as tense with only one individual causing them all the problems. But to me, it just felt a little stale. It's just kind of like, oh, we're fighting an army again. And the last thing that I kind of felt took away from this movie was the fact that the novelty of them all being on screen together has worn off with the first movie. And I know there's no way to really avoid that, especially with the nature of these movies, but it just kind of felt like more of the same. And I also kind of felt like the first movie had a tighter, more coherent story than this one. Not to say that it wasn't easy to follow, but at the same time, it's just the first one was more succinct and it made more sense, in my opinion. Other than that, though, I really enjoyed Avengers Age of Ultron, and I'm really excited for Infinity Wars Part 1 and Part 2, and I am so excited for Civil War. I cannot wait to see Iron Man and Captain America beating the shit out of each other. which this could potentially be Captain America's last movie, or more specifically, Chris Evans, because his contract is running out. He doesn't want to do any more Marvel movies, and I like the fact that with the Winter Soldier, it opens the world up to have either Falcon take over as Captain America, which he did in the comics at one point, or to have Bucky take over as Captain America, which he also did in the comics at one point. So I like the fact that they are keeping things kind of open. With all of that said, I would give Avengers Age of Ultron a B+. It's still a fun action movie. It's a great summer blockbuster, and you're probably going to have a great time going to see this movie. There's a lot of laughs, there's a lot of action. It's a fun film. It's a fun popcorn flick. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to put the link to the trailer down below, because if you haven't seen the trailer yet, I don't know what the fuck you've been doing. You need to watch it. Go check out the movie and comment below. Let me know what you thought about it.
Let's talk about it.
And as always, thank you guys for watching, the both of you. It means a lot to me. And if you like what you see, click the subscribe button to watch more of the Scully channel. America!
Balls.